Hey everyone, welcome back to Beginning Fabrication. This is episode 8 and hopefully you'll enjoy it. Cheers. Someone asked why I always have a hat on. A couple of reasons. One, I'm going bald. But no, the main reason is just to keep crap out of my hair. So it makes my wash up at the end of the day easier. It also just keeps my fur out of my face a bit. So that's the main reason why I've always got a hat on or a beanie. Plus lately it's been cold. So the beanie's been getting a fair workout. So that's it. Ta, bye. Oh yeah, remember the other week or episode, whenever it was, I was building this funny air vent demister for the FX sedan. I had to put a zigzag, well I didn't have to, I chose to put a zigzag in it. It's still hollow all the way through, but by stepping the motor forward, it allowed me to give the glove box some more space by pushing the heater motor part close to the firewall. So now I've test fitted this in the car and I'm happy with how it fits. So now that I've done that, I can start making the second one. So I just thought I'd show you, now that I know how weird the shape has to be, I can show you how I'm going to plan recreating this. So let's get started. Okay, so we'll start at the easy end, which is just this ramp down tapered section. There's two ways you can do it. You can either cut the angle off and then just weld a plate on, but I'm going to cut a wedge out of the side of here. I'll finger gauge that and actually just cut a triangle out of the side and fold this down. So because obviously the length of that part there now is longer than it would have been if it was straight up to that point, if that makes sense. I'm probably not explaining that very well, but what I'm going to do is come back, I don't know, I'll give it 15 millimeters because it's a lot easier to trim off a little excess than it is to add it. So I'm just going to use my little square. I only need to do this on 3 sides because I'm going to leave the top part intact. So just make sure the mark goes around the corner so you can pick it up on the next face. Make sure the square is sort of level. There it is. Okay. So now I just need to measure how long this ramp is, and it's 50 mil. So I'll bring this back to this side. So there's my finger gauge mark. I don't know if you can see that. I've actually I've marked it on the bottom of that radius. I'll just see if I can move this down a bit. Oh, not really. I'll bring this up. There we go. Where are we here? Okay, you can see this radius. I want to keep that, so when that's folded down it's still going to have this same overall shape, even though it's going to be coming down here. So that's my line, and you can see I've come back 15 mil on these 3 sides, but not on the top, because this will be the ramp. So once it gets bent down, any little piece that may be overhanging I can just trim off as I tack it. So now I just need to measure from my 15mm, come back 50mm, and then that'll let me know how to draw my triangle. So then I'll just draw a line down the corners. Same on the other side. Actually, I've got to do my finger gauge yet. I'll just do it with my left hand so I don't have to spin the piece around. Even though I'm not as good with my left hand, it still does the job. 50mm. There. So when you've got a few lines that you don't really need, you can sort of see, like, I don't need that piece or that piece, so it can get confusing. So I'll sort of colour in the bits I need to get rid of sometimes, not all the time, but for this I will, just so you can obviously see that this part here is staying, that's staying, this triangle here is staying, and then that entire top section is staying. So I'll cut that out, and then I'll probably just give it a quick clean up with the clean and strip disc, and then I'll be back. Alright, well, there's our little piece cut out, and had a quick clean up with the clean and strip disc. So as you can see that the top part sticks out further than the bottom here. That's why I wanted that 15mm extra, just so when this gets knocked down it won't be too short. And we can just tap this down. So when I weld it, I'll just use a clamp or vice grips, or even just pliers to squeeze that. It's only thin wall tube, so just a pair of pliers can squeeze that down enough to be able to weld it. And you can see I've actually got my length pretty good. 15mm was quite a good guess. So I'll just give this a bit of a tack, and I'll be back in a sec. And there's that tacked. I welded the end, but I'll just tack the sides just to keep it going quicker. So now the next thing we need to do is I'm just going to put a quick mark in for where the heater hole has to go. So this is just going to be a quick guide for me, because I'll measure it out with a ruler later. I just want to give myself a ballpark. I'll just finger gauge it. Now that's hot. Funny that. You'd think when you weld something it wouldn't be hot. Dodgy left-handed finger gauge. Okay, so because I already had this one made when I welded the zigzag in, I did it in a separate piece. But now I know exactly how it has to be shaped. I know that I can do it in one piece as long as I mark it out properly. So that's where most squares will have a 45-degree angle setting of some sort. So I've just marked where I need this end part to finish, the back wall of this piece. And so this side bit here is going to keep going once it's been cut and welded, and that'll become this back piece. So just move that. So what I'm going to do is just make a big wedge shape and cut it out, similar to like how we did the front piece. So I can bend this and weld it back together to create my 90-degree bend without having to cut it completely apart and clamp it. If you can keep it joined together by even just one face, it will, well, I find it easier to keep it all straight because you've got one piece that isn't completely separated. So now I'm just going to transfer my center line so I can do my marking on the other side. A little bit chilly this morning, my fingers aren't working very well. That's okay, we'll get through it, I'm sure. Alright, now if you want to make sure that your marks are the same, you can just transfer the top mark across and they should line up. And these ones do. So you can see I had a bit of a dodgy mark where the thing moved, but that whole, so I'll colour in what I'm going to cut out. Up to the edge, so this whole piece, that whole piece, and then this side as well is all going to come out. And that'll mean it's only joined here, so I'll be able to bend that part. Sorry if you couldn't see then, I'm not even looking at my camera thing. So once this piece is removed, it'll allow me to bend this into a 90-degree angle and tack it back together. So I'll cut that out now and I'll be back in a sec. I'll do a bit more cleaning up too with the cleaning strip disc as I go. Okay, so that's that funny little piece cut out. So now I can bend it, make the 90-degree angle that it needs to be. It's still joined on the back, and I didn't actually want this to be a complete 90 degree. Even though this is messy, you can see that this actually comes uphill a bit from there, just because of how the firewall's shaped. So even though I marked this out as 90 degrees, I undercut it a little bit so that it wouldn't quite be 90 degrees. So I'll just get a couple of tacks on this and then I'll be back. Alright, so that's just got a couple of tacks on it, holding it into shape. And again, with the back part still being joined, it meant that I didn't have to worry about trying to clamp it or do anything strange to hold it into position. I don't know if you can see, if I lay this one on top of it, same shape. So actually what I might do now that that's on top there, get my pencil, and just mark out where this needs to be. Let's go straight there. So basically it's just the 40mm, it's the same width as the material. Sorry, I did it 50mm. Alright, I'll just use the ruler then. I'll go 45. And I'll use my little jigger again. So this isn't particularly about teaching you how to make a demister for an FX Holden, although if you need to, this is a pretty simple little way of having something out of sight. This is more just about showing you how I mark things out, even though it might look like I'm doing it in a complicated way. I find it simpler because it keeps the job together. It's when you end up with all these different pieces that you have to clamp. I mean, it's still easy, I guess, but I've just learnt to do it this way because it saves me a bit of time, and I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to have all these faces lined up without too much trouble, like that's sitting, pretty dead on. So now it's zigzag, so it's got to come back this way, which means we have to cut a big piece out of this side. So I'm trying to figure out where my marks need to go. It's a funny shaped thing, but you'll find that as you fabricate stuff, necessity will dictate what shape things are most of the time, and the more you do, the more you realise it doesn't matter if things are a funny shape. They just need to work, and that's all that's important. Plus, you know, a demister tube is a pretty boring job. You know, it doesn't sound fun, not like putting a Hemi in a Corolla or something, but when you get to do this kind of stuff, it just makes the job a bit more interesting as well. And I know I say inspiration a lot and motivation, but you know, I do literally work on my own, so my own company's pretty boring, as you've probably found out by how boring these episodes are. So by having work being interesting, it helps me. Oh, and I'm a bit snotty today, I apologise. Alright, so that's the, I don't know if you can really see that with the shiny metal. There is a bit of a triangle shape there that I'm going to cut out. So I'll do that, and then I'll return, much to your dismay. So there's the next cut. See, it's starting to look pretty weird. So He-man that across. Let's see, it's getting that zigzag look. So I'll just chuck a couple of tacks on this and I'll be back in a sec. Alright, so with the first bend, it was under 90 degrees, so I undercut. Even though I marked it in as 90 degrees, I just used that as a guide. And then with this one, it's actually over 90 degrees. So again, I marked it as 90, but then overcut it. So you can see on this, I think that this one's had a few goes, obviously, because this is the first one I did. So you can see it starts to come back uphill through there. So this one, even though this part sticks out a little bit, just because of how I did the first one in a few goes, what's important to me on this one is where it joins the round tube. So I needed this square piece to be in the right spot. That was the most important bit, which is fine. So now what I'll do is grab my ruler and my pencil, and I'm just going to measure how far from this corner to the end of that. I'm going to call it 1500, even though it's not quite, it's probably a little bit less, but it's much easier to trim a bit off. And again, for that ramp, I'll just cut a piece out of the side of this one to get my ramp, and this side. And that'll give me the desired look to match this one with that triangle shape there. So I'll get that sorted out and I'll be back. So there's the last cut, hopefully, of the square tube. So this is to make that funny peak. So again, when I tack this, I'll just pinch it with the pliers. But that's the same, pretty much the same design as what's happening on this piece. So I'll get this tacked together and we'll keep going. Alright, so that's got this ramp part tacked together. And then I've cut the hole for the heater motor itself. A little bit. So the heater's got a mount, so that'll have a bracket that comes off the firewall, but on both of these pieces I've made the hole like quite snug. Too snug. There we go. Just because it's an air vent and I don't want it leaking air. I'd rather the air all went through the tube, so that's a pretty snug fit, same as this one. So apart from needing welding, that's the initial part of this done. The next thing I need to do now is clean up the round tube and then start getting it to join into this piece. So I'll clean up the round tube and I'll be back. Alright, so I've sanded all of the powder coat off the tube just with the clean and strip disc, and then I've marked the centre because I need to cut it eventually to put this angle in it. So I've got my sliding bevel and set this angle already, so I can use that for when it comes time to put the V shape into the tube. But what I'm going to do first, just mark on this tube where it stops on this bit of pipe here. And I'll get my other jigger and just transfer that mark. It doesn't have to be to the millimetre for this case, but it doesn't hurt to have things as accurate as you can. And then how I did that other one is I literally just set it over the top of the piece like that, and then just drew the profile onto the pipe. So I'm going to do that again. Just need to try and make sure that you're in line, like keeping it horizontal, I guess is one way of putting it. And then before I move this, I'm just going to do a quick line to show me the top of this pipe when I mark this out, just to keep myself in line. So I'm just going to go over this a bit darker. It's hard to see, I can't really see anything, but you can see the straight line. So this will be the top, and then this funny line that's coming in here is where it's going to go underneath and sort of envelope that ramp part. So I'll cut this out and show you what I do next. Alright, so I trimmed out my little piece. So now that's got this sitting on there reasonably well. That's what it looks like. See, it's a pretty funny looking deal, but it's sort of slip over the top of that, which it does well enough. So what I'll do now is find my pencil again. I'm just going to draw around this because this is an air passage. It can't have metal inside it. Get it lined up. Now obviously where I'm marking out is on the outside of this tube, so if I cut on these lines the hole would be too big, so just keep in mind where you're marking certain things, that the mark isn't the actual line, it's just a guide. So I'll cut in a few mil inside of these lines, and it's good to know roughly where you need to be. I need to turn it over, put it back in the centre. Now I can just have a look under the side, make sure it's straight. There we go. If I wasn't so lazy, I'd just go and get a clamp and hold this together, but I just thought I'd do it quickly, but it's taking longer anyway, so there we go. Okay, so there's my mark again. I don't know if you can really see it, and on the top, so where this joins at the back there, you can see there's a gap at the back of the pipe. So I'm actually going to cut these lines back a bit longer than I need to, and then lift up a piece of this like a flap. So once this pipe's joined on and tacked in, I can tap the little flap over that and weld it all up, and then that'll seal it. So my next job now is to cut this out, but again I'm going to cut inside those lines by a few mil, and that'll allow the metal to sit on the metal rather than sitting inside a hole. So we'll do that now and be back in a sec. Alright, so you can see that funny little flap thing, so that'll get knocked down and welded over once it's tacked together. Put this together like that. So that's all. No gaps as such, no leaks to the outside, and then that's what I've cut out of it. So it's got a pretty free flow through from where the heater starts to where it's going to come out to blow air. Not that you can really see through it because it's got a zigzag in it, but that's what I've done inside the other one to make this a free passage through. So I'll tack this on, and that's probably all I really need to show you of this job, because I just wanted to explain a little bit about joining pieces and cutting funny shapes. And even though it looks like a crazy abomination of a thing, it's going to work well, and that's the most important thing when it comes to the behind the scenes jobs like a demister that no one will ever see. It just needs to work and fit. And even though there's a little bit of time goes into these things, it's not a ridiculously expensive project. So I just figured I'd film it and let you guys see one of these weird things that I have to make. Right, so that's tacked. I did some blobby welds on that little flat part. That's what grinders are for. So that's the main piece. You can see it lines up pretty well with this one. So all that's left now is to cap the end of this piece, because it's still hollow, and then put this bend in it. Yeah, so that's just a little job about showing you how to cut funny angles and try and keep things nice and straight, and be imaginative. because I never thought that I'd need to make a thing that looked this ugly, let alone two of them, but it's going to work. So I just figured I'd show you guys my little process, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. Alright, cool. So I gave this a quick weld and sand up, just thought I'd show you how it looks now that it's not just tacked together. So it's not pretty, but it's going to do the job, and that's the main thing. So I've still got to do the centre cut and cap the end, and then it's done. So fun times. Okay, so we're just going to cap the end of this now. The easiest way I find is just to trace it. Another piece of scrap. You can see I've got it pretty close to the edge, because you can get a couple of tack welds onto it, then you can just sand the excess off before you fully weld it. I'll show you what I mean as I go. So there's my mark. I'm just gonna use my blunt tin snips. I'm just gonna cut this into a square basically, just so I can get 4 tack welds on it. And I'll just sand the rest of it off as I go, so you can kind of see, where are you? The 4 sides, those 4 where my fingers are, they're all pretty close to the line, so I'll be able to tack weld it there, and then once it's on the pipe, I'll be able to just sand this all off while it's actually on the pipe, so I don't have to worry about cutting it to the perfect shape. I'll cheat a bit, so I'll tack that on and I'll show you how it looks. So that's tacked on with 4 tacks. Now I'm just going to sand off all that excess with this. So I'll do that and weld it up, and we're almost finished. So after a quick sand up, looks like that. So it's still got lumps where those tacks are, but it's sitting pretty nicely against the end of the pipe. So I can get welded and sanded up now, and just leaves one more little job, cutting this middle bit. Okay, so that's capped now. So that just leaves putting the bend in the main pipe. Yeah. I'll get that done, and then we can call this job finished. Yay! So that's been cut and angled and welded back together. So all this needs now is just a coat of primer, and it's ready to go. So it's a pretty good match for the first one I did. Put it on there and lines up. So it's just another little project done, and hopefully there's a couple of little tips in there that you'll find useful. So I'll see you next time. Congratulations, you've bored your way through another episode of Beginning Fabrication. I've still got quite a few ideas left of things to show, so I'm not going to stop just yet. And if there's anything else you want me to add, just feel free to ask. Holy crap, I'm pink. Yeah, just ask on any of my social media stuff, or comment below if there's anything you'd like me to try and cover or explain. And till then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.